Everybody listen to We're Not Wizards, because we are the best, and we're not wizards, no matter what anybody says. Goodbye.
Welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for April. Yes, it is. I think it is April. It seems like the longest March in history. And I don't know if everybody's making that same joke, but I'm quite happy to join the bandwagon and to make that same joke as well. We're in our fourth year, I think. Yeah, it is. It's been that long. And we have approached kind of this from podcasts from all different levels. We have, and indeed the platform from all different levels. We've done videos, we've done written reviews, we've continued to do the podcast as well. And one of the things we're always conscious about is kind of accessibility to the hobby. Now, accessibility to the hobby means different things to different people. And to some people, it could be their ability to be able to turn up at a table and have a game of something. To other people, it's their ability to be able to engage with the hobby and media and the hobby in general. So one of the things that I was looking to do was to speak to somebody about not only accessibility in the hobby, but in relation to people who have hearing difficulties and how they gain access to media. How do they find out about games in general? And so I thought I would bring on Stephanie Jessup from Dibs on Blue. And we've got lots of important questions to get answered. One of them is obviously, the first one is to say hello to Stephanie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
That's good. Yes, no, I'm delighted to have you on. The most important question before we start and everything is, and I did warn you before we start, but why is it blue?
Why Dibs on Blue?
Why Dibs on Blue?
I've always liked that color. That's always been my favorite color. But no, I was in the living room with my husband. I was trying to figure out what to name this channel. And I was like, I want something catchy, but I don't want anything overly like sign language related, because I didn't want it to be, I didn't want it to just be like sign language in your face type of thing. I wanted it to be board game related. So I was like, I don't know what to name my channel. And so we were throwing names around, and I was doing like puns with hands, in the name. And so my husband was just like, Dibs on Blue. And I was like, wait, what did you say? And he's like, Dibs on Blue. He's like, you always want to play blue. And we always fight over who's blue whenever we play a game.
Wow.
So I was like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. So I was like, it's catchy. It's easy to say. It's all about, what piece you want to play and what color you want to play. So I was like, it's perfect. But yeah, I've always loved blue. It's always been my favorite color. So I was like, I'll just go with this.
I think it's important to then go through all the rest of the other colours and discuss why you don't like any of those other colours. So I did in preparation get a colour chart from the paint shed.
Oh.
So we're going to start with the reds, and we're going to work our way all the way through the visible spectrum.
Okay.
Until we reach indigo, and you can tell me why you don't like that colour. So if we start off with the letterbox red.
Oh, it's horrible. It's way too vibrant.
Right, okay, well that...
Way too hard on the eyes.
No, it's not.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever been in
all I'm
somebody's
gonna say
house
is, no,
where
it's
the
not.
walls are painted red? Awful. Awful. Awful color.
I just like to point out that my TV unit is red.
Well, that's horrible.
And there's several
You're a very
red
angry
things.
individual watching TV.
And no, it's not like that at all. It's just, it was a nice shiny red. I feel attacked. I'm 5 minutes into my own podcast.
Red means, well, of course, red means love. Yeah, whatever. But red means warfare and anger and blood.
And also a nice shiny TV unit.
Yeah, well,
that's what people say. You know, when I get the stoplight in the car,
it goes in like blood, warfare, love, his TV.
That's how it is. I get to a red stoplight, I'm thinking, oh, I really should catch up on the next episode of Picard. And maybe hope that they've started to write a better story for it. But there you go. But let's go back a bit. I
can do this with every color.
Okay, so the next color is banana yellow.
That is like, well, when you say banana yellow, all that does is remind me of like tropics and monkeys and
yeah. Oh, come on.
You know, I can't. You can't do it with the banana. When you say banana yellow, right, okay,
well, it's a nice yellow. It's a really nice, vibrant kind of. Sunny Delight's a different. That's an orange color, but we can get on to Sunny Delight Orange, which is just, you know, I also don't like that color of orange anyway, so it doesn't it doesn't really kind of matter. Because I remember having a very wired little brother when Sunny Delight hit the UK and just watching him run about the garden, and we had to dig a pit and we had to cover it with branches and we had to watch him fall in there before we could even put him to bed. We ended up having to get like a tranquilizer gun as he was running about screaming and then watch him fall.
Yeah, that's a pretty horrible
And then we had to make sure he was
memory.
tranquilized enough because we didn't get the dose. That is a pretty horrible memory. It's not true.
So I don't think you would like Sunny Delight just for that reason.
No, it's because it's awful. It's the Mountain Dew of orange juice.
It really is. It's horrible.
Let's look at it. Let's look at it that way. But let's look at things the other way. You're going to be so glad you came on the show. This is not. But anyway,
I'm going to get off of this podcast and be like, guess what? And to my husband, guess what we talked about the entire time?
Guess what? We sang the rainbow song.
I learned my colors.
Well, it's always a good. Every day is a school day, as they would say. In terms of, because I'm guessing that you've been involved in kind of like accessibility for a little while.
Yeah.
With kind of let's start with like ASL itself. Now, when we're having our preliminary conversation, one of the things that you said is you were like, "Are you aware that ASL is completely different from, say, BSL, British Sign Language?" Before we have kind of like any kind of discussion at all. So how long have you been involved in kind of how long have you been involved in sign language for?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I think I graduated from my college program in 2005. So that's when I graduated college. So let's see, I started learning, a few years before that while I was in college. And then when I graduated in 2005, I was an interpreter, just a regular old sign language interpreter that was going to different community assignments, like medical appointments for deaf people and just lots of different stuff, social security appointments. There's lots of different things that I was going to just to interpret. I mean, deaf people go everywhere that we go, like hearing people go, so that I had to do all these different kinds of appointments. And so I did that for a while, and then I got approached by one of the interpreting agencies I worked for. They wanted to do a community class at a library to teach adults how to sign, like different, I think they were all nurses. They wanted to learn sign language so that they could better communicate with their deaf patients. And so I did that. Okay. Yeah, and I was like, well, I've never taught before. And she's like, well, I'll give you the PowerPoint, and we'll work it out. It'll just be really easy. Just stand up there and show them some signs. Well, it ended up being really fun. It ended up being, because all of a sudden I was like with my own peers, like with people my age, and they were really interested in sign language. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. And so it kind of gave me this teaching bug where I was like, I need to start teaching. And so I went back to school and got my master's degree in teaching, and it was in curriculum and education. And then I started teaching at a high school. So I started teaching American Sign Language as a world language. They were offering it just like you take like Spanish or whatever. They were offering it as a world language. So.
Yeah,
it was great. It wasn't like I was teaching deaf people. Sometimes people ask me like, "Whoa, so you were teaching deaf people?" And I was like, "No, I was teaching hearing students, just like they were teaching, like they were taking Spanish, but they were taking ASL." And so I did that for 5 years, and then now I'm a stay-at-home mom. I've been home for almost a year. So yeah, it's been kind of a journey. I was an interpreter, then I went into teaching, and that has been since 2005. So yeah.
But what first got you into ASL? I mean, was it somebody you knew? Was it a relative, a friend, a family member? It was a
friend. Her parents are both deaf, and they
right.
I didn't know her very well. She was like a friend of the guy that I was dating at the time. And I went out to lunch. We were on like a double date. And so I went out to lunch and we were talking. And I was like, well, what do you do? And she's like, well, I'm an interpreter because my parents are deaf. And I said, oh, and it was the first time I had ever actually talked to somebody that was affiliated in that community at all. And I was like, oh, there's like a thing for that. I was totally unaware of that whole world. And she's like, yeah. And so I was asking her all about it. And I was like, this sounds really cool. And then I met her parents, and just randomly one day at a Panera. I don't know if you know what Panera is. It's like a...
I don't know. Is it a shade of...
I don't know if you have Panera
It's a shade of
there.
Green?
Yes.
Is it a car?
It's a horrible shade of green. No.
It's the horrible shade of green, which is the reason that you don't call it Dibs on Green.
It's not Dibs on Green, no. It's like a little restaurant. But so I ran into them, and I didn't know any sign language, and I felt horrible because I couldn't talk to them. But they looked so sweet, and they were so nice, and they were just smiling because they knew that I couldn't talk to them. But I felt horrible that I couldn't talk to them, and I'm like, I need to learn sign language. I think I'd be really good at it. I'm really coordinated. Like, I was a drummer. I used to play drums, and so I was like, I think I could do it. Just the coordination of it. I think I could do it. And I was in theater. I was a theater major in college too. I was a double major. And so I did theater, and I was like, I think I could be like emotive with my face, and I could do this. So I went to school. I was like, whatever, I'm going to go back to school. So I went back to school to learn sign language. That's when it started.
What kind of drumming did you do? Because this is where we go. Was it you?
Oh yeah, you're fine.
Because you heard the joke about what do you call a person that hangs about with a group of musicians? a drummer.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah, I.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, so in high school, I got my first drum set. My parents were really sweet. Parents usually don't like buying their kids drum sets because they're way too loud. But my parents bought me a drum set when I was in like 5th grade. And wow. I just played that thing all the time. I'm sure much to their dismay. It was very loud. But I played it all the time. And then I was in band, in school, and I was in the percussion. And when I got into high school, I was on the drum line, which is really where I just shined. I had so much fun on the drum line. And then I was band president. I'm that person. I'm very much a geek. So I was band president when I was a senior, and then I just played drum set, like I played quads on the drum line. If you know anything about drums, I played the quads. But yeah, I had a blast.
That sounds like muscles to me. That's all people go on. I should be working on my quads. I didn't realize I should be working on my drum kit.
It does.
That's kind of a no, because it's like the whole rhythm thing. Because they actually have rhythm. Is the because you say, oh, that dancer there, he's got such good rhythm, and then you're looking at like the person in the corner playing the drums, and they're doing like essentially 4 different things with all of their limbs.
Yeah.
And you're just like, and there's a certain amount of awe, because it's like, in essence, drum, guitar. Right? Okay, let's let's destroy this myth that I just created with my terrible joke. But a guitarist, okay. I mean, probably a bass player. He'll like go doon 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 and then change his key and stuff like that. But then there'll be bits where they'll speed up and slow down. And then the lead guitar, he'll just come in and do widdly widdly whatever they're going to do. And the singer, they just they don't even need to. Half the time they're just making up stuff that they've made anyway.
Yeah.
But the drummer, you've got to be consistent. I mean, you have to be the person that's like the methodical kind of do, because if you go do,
right,
then everybody kind of goes off tempo and then everybody just has to go home.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say I was very good, but I had fun. I was much better on the quads than I was on a drum set. Drum sets it's really difficult. I took lessons for a while. I mean, I wasn't horrible, and I wasn't excellent. I was somewhere in the middle, I'd say.
But you did theatre as well, and so were you doing kind of? Was that technical theatre, or were you doing musical stuff as well, kind of the singing, the dancing, the whole 9 yards? Really?
Yeah, all of it. I love singing. I love dancing. My poor kids, because that's all they're exposed to all day. I make a song out of everything. We're taking a bath. Really? I'm singing about taking a bath. I sing about everything. And again, I'm probably not very good, but I love it.
I'm competent and determined.
It's funny. Yeah,
It's like the musical theatre Terminator. It's like, oh no, they'll come to sing with us, and they will not stop. They will never stop.
Exactly. And sometimes I sing, and my kid will just scream at me like, "Mom, stop!" I'm like, "No, I'm never going to stop. I'm never stopping."
Are they glad that you're effectively socially isolated and need to stay in the house all the time? I mean, are they having a real fun time?
Yeah, they're having absolute
that you
blast.
Just 7 o'clock in the morning, straight up, and you can sing them the good morning, get out of bed song, move to it's time for breakfast, and then it's like, oh, look at it, it's time for exercise, kids, and then let's see what's on TV. And then are they just not getting up at all? Is it 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon?
Oh, no, they're
before you see them.
Up way early. Yeah, I have little kids. My 3-year-old is up and ready to go, so.
6 o'clock job.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... I actually, what's funny is that the other night I told my husband, I was like, I just want to sleep in one day, and he's been working from home because of this whole pandemic. So I told him, I'm like, I just want to sleep in one day, and so he's like, well, I'll get up with them tomorrow, because he didn't have to work. It was Sunday, he didn't have to work. So I was like, okay, great. So usually they're up at 6, and I was like, okay, I just want to sleep in. Would you believe they slept in until like 8, the day that he was supposed to get them? Like, why?
How delighted were you when that happened? How absolutely beaming with joy.
I woke up, and we all woke up at the same time, because I slept in like 2 hours later than I normally do. So I woke up, I was fresh and awake, and then I noticed that none of them were like up. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Out of all the days, they never sleep in until the day I say, I want to sleep in. Can you get them this time?
Are you considering saying that again really soon, just to see if it has the same effect?
I would love to do that, yeah. Would love, because he's not off the hook. He's like, well, I did it. I got them up. Because he did actually like go in their rooms and get them up. Yeah. But I'm like, that's not fair. Yeah. Like, it wasn't the right thing that I wanted to happen.
See, I think a good defense lawyer is going to get them off on that claim. Probably. I'm afraid.
Probably, because he's right. He did get them up, but it wasn't the way that I wanted it to happen.
But I wanted them up at 5:30. Mm-hmm. I wanted you to do the bleary-eyed coffee thing.
Yes,
I want you to just experience what I had to do. That kind of thing.
And that's not fair.
What about try to fight our way back to the topic we should be discussing? This is obviously fabulous as it is, but in terms of tabletop itself, What's your kind of relationship with that, with a hobby? I mean, are you and your husband, are you kind of keen players? Is it more you than him that likes to play? I mean,
No, we've both been really interested in board games our whole life. And I mean, I was always the friend when I was growing up that was like forcing all my friends to play board games. And
oh, right, okay. Yeah.
And he was the same way. He was really into board games when he was growing up. And so when we started dating, we weren't in the hobby when we started dating. We liked board games, but we just didn't know it. Like, so I mean, we liked them, but we just didn't know that there was even a hobby. And we started getting into it right when the hobby started taking off and becoming a big thing. And then we started our collection, and now we have a ton of board games in our collection. But I also do this channel, so that's helped me kind of justify all the games. Yes, and justify why we have so many. So yeah.
How many do you have?
Oh gosh, I don't even know. Maybe. I'm
kinda
horrible at estimating.
My
husband would laugh right now because I am horrible at estimating anything. I don't know.
Is it more than 50?
Oh yeah, because we have two. I don't know if you know what Calyx shelves are. They're like that. Yeah, things that everybody talks about Calyx shelves.
Yeah.
We have two. I think they're 4x4. We've got two 4x4 Calyx shelves filled, and then there's one in the middle of the two shelves that is just a regular old bookshelf it's also lined with board games. So, and that's it. That's all we have. We have some that are like in a bin underneath our stairs that are just ones that we know we're just not interested in playing, and we got to get rid of them because we're just trying to cull our collection a little bit. So however many you think that would be, that's how many we have.
I think about 27.
Yeah, it's a good number. There you go.
If you space them out, about 27 is as good a number. So that's a good estimation.
Shelf.
There's one board game because you got to space these things out, especially if you've got them facing out the way,
right?
And then you got to color code them exactly. I'm reckoning, 27.
27. That's a good number.
That's a good, because then people are just going to go, "Oh, you're starting out."
Yeah,
and you can say, "Yeah."
But it's a good number too to be like. It's not like a beginner, 27 is a good number to be like, I'm kind of in the hobby.
Yeah, exactly. I've stepped into the door.
Yeah.
But I'm not embarrassed when people are looking at me because I know that I am one of everyone else.
Yeah, one of them.
That's kind of there. Mm-hmm. With the kids, do you play games with the kids then?
All the time,
is it become kind of
Yeah, all the time. The 3-year-old. I mean, I have a 3-year-old, and my other daughter is almost 1, so she's not playing anything.
All right, okay.
But the 3-year-old, we play games all the time. I'm so excited right now because she's really into like rolling dice, and
wow.
She loves rolling dice. And then whenever my husband and I play a game, she'll help. She likes rolling the dice whenever we play. But no, I'm really excited for her because we're just starting to get into the board games that are a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited because I can't wait to groom her into our board gamer and a theatrical lover. She'll probably hate both things later in life just because I've forced it on her.
That's going to be it. She's going to rebel. She's going to rebel, and she's going to learn guitar, and she's going to walk about the house. She's going to walk about the house wearing yellow all the time, and
no red.
And that's
red. No,
she's going to get a tattoo that says "Dibs on red."
Oh God.
That's going to be it. And a big, huge, and in the shape of a TV unit as well, because that's how it's
just outlined with a TV, like the YouTube logo. Oh, that's funny.
That would be amazing. That's going to happen. We have to make. Well, you can make that happen. I'm not going to get involved in that kind of thing. But anyway, in terms of here's the question. You could say that board games, in terms of the general friendliness towards kind of accessibility to people who have kind of varying degrees of hearing loss, I would guess that some are more suited than kind of others. But in terms of, I guess, making people aware of the types of board games that are out there, what kind of made you kind of step up to the plate and say, look, there's very little kind of going on in terms of media out there to make even deaf people aware of kind of what is kind of available?
Yeah, that was pretty much it, where I was like, there's nothing on YouTube. There's nothing for deaf people. There was, at the time, I really thought that there was zero, but then when I got into it, I realized there was another channel, and I don't mind promoting him because it's great. He's a deaf man. He runs a channel called Hands on Board Games. And his channel is all in sign language. It's captioned. And I didn't even know he existed when I started Dibs on Blue. And then it was like a couple months later, somebody was like, oh, there is this other channel. And I was like, oh, great. Like, because the more the merrier. That's how I feel. Because the more content that's out there and the more people that have channels like that, the better it is for the deaf community. I want more people to be playing board games that are in the deaf and hard of hearing community. So, when I saw he was out there, that was pretty much it, though. It was just him and I. And then another one popped up recently called Dice Stew. And I think she does more like reviews and stuff like that. I'm not sure exactly. But there's another one called Dice Stew that's out there. And that's pretty much it. So when I started Dibs on Blue, I was like, there's really nothing out there. And I just took it upon myself to be like, look, I love board games. I know sign language. I have all of the know-how to create a YouTube channel. So I was like, let's do it. Let's just do it. So that's why I did it. I take it there's still challenges in terms of accessibility with the deaf community even getting access to be able to play games within what you would consider like a board game kind of club environment. Yeah, definitely. They're just starting to get into the hobby, I'd say. I don't want to act, and I always say this on podcasts, I don't want to act like I'm the spokesperson for the deaf community by any means, because obviously I'm not deaf. But from what I've seen and what I've discussed in the deaf community, they're just starting to get really interested in board gaming, and there's this big push right now for deaf and hard of hearing people to be like, hey, you're part of this community too, you know. And I'm in a Facebook group called I think it's called Board Game and Card Games for Deaf Geeks, which is cute. But I'm in that board game group, and when I joined that group a couple years ago, there were only like 100 people in it or something, and now there's like 500 or something like that. So it's like, It's a slow burn, but I feel like it's just starting to be a thing where deaf people are like, oh, like we have a place in this community, you know? So just trying to help get that content out there so that more deaf people know that this is an accessible hobby to them, you know? It's not perfect, but they definitely have a place.
And are there games that are kind of, you've noticed are more suitable for the kind of the deaf community? Are there games that, or because it's difficult, because I would say that, well, people say, well, maybe games that people are having to communicate left back and forward might be a bit more tricky, but it's like, well, if they're just using ASL, then surely that wouldn't be an issue. But again, it's like, it's one of these things, it's like, I know nothing, I know nothing about it.
Yeah, you're totally right. You're
know
correct.
Something about it, then
Yeah, there's lots of games out there that I want to say, I would say most games that have been made are fine. Deaf people have no problem playing them, right? Because you're just talking around a table. And so deaf people can just talk in sign language, and that's it. That's all they have to do. But there's a lot of games out there that aren't great for deaf people. And one of the things that they've talked about, and there's a constant discussion about, is those social deduction games where you have to close your eyes. You know? I don't know if you've ever played anything like One Night Ultimate Werewolf or anything where you have to close your eyes, and then you're a roll that has to wake up and do something, and then you close your eyes, and then another roll wakes up and does something. and then you close your eyes. Well, that's horrible for a deaf person because they can't communicate. So when are they supposed to wake up? When do they know that their role is supposed to wake up? You know, because usually there's an auditory clue somehow. It's an app or something that tells you that you're supposed to wake up. So that's been a really big struggle. They get around it by memorizing, how many pounds on the table is it for me to wake up? Instead of using an auditory clue, they'll use something like a vibration, or they'll flick on the lights. And how many lights flicking on and off is it my turn to wake up? That kind of thing. But that usually requires some sort of moderator to oversee the whole gameplay so that the game can function properly, Yeah.
Is because the visually impaired, okay. Look at it this way. I think in some ways, there's more awareness of colorblindness within board games than there is about accessibility for people who are deaf.
Oh, I would agree.
And even then, the color, people, I still see kind of heated debates with regards to, colorblind accessibility in board games where people are like, they're putting messages on forums to say, guys, it's 2020, you couldn't just check and make sure that that you had some extra symbols on this to make sure that I could see it, because I can't, this is red and brown and there's no way I can tell the difference with it. Do you think on occasion maybe like the deaf community is put to the further down the list in terms of accessibility?
Yeah, but I don't think that's I don't think it's on purpose. You know what I mean? I think it's just, like you said, it's just a total unawareness of that the community even really exists out there that needs something different. And I've said before when I've been interviewed in the past that I don't think something is ever going to be 100% accessible to everyone, right? Like that's impossible or near impossible. Because I don't know if you've ever played the game I've brought up before in an interview where it's the game Nyctophobia, where you have to, it's perfect for a blind person because it was actually made for blind people to play.
Yeah.
Where you have to like close your eyes. You're actually like blindfolded. You have like glasses on that obstruct your vision. And so it's like perfect for a blind person to play Nyctophobia. But that would be horrible for a deaf person to play, Yeah. But that's great that Nyctophobia is out there for people who are visually impaired and need want to play a game that would be perfect for them, and they would feel like it's an equal experience, But yeah, I would definitely agree that colorblindness there's a big push for that lately. I've seen a lot of discussion about colorblindness and how cute that this game just has a bunch of cubes and they're all kind of the same color. And I do wish that there was more of a discussion about deaf people, but that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm trying to get it out there, And maybe one day we will. Maybe one day that will be in the forefront of discussions.
Well, in all fairness, I think the colourblindness thing was because I think beforehand they didn't realise how prolific it was amongst amongst people. And also it does have a tendency, colourblindness, to affect males than anyone else. And again, it wasn't until the discussions were actually starting to happen that people went, oh, well, I actually can't, I haven't been tested. I didn't realize I couldn't see this color until somebody pointed it out to me.
Yeah.
And I think it's just become, it's when you get, it's when it's a case of people are shouting at people because they've missed it out, as opposed to shouting at people to get it included in the first place. And I think colour blindness, one of the reasons that colour blindness has become quite a bit of a talking point was down to video games as well, because some of the really big video game publishers have put in colourblind settings as standard into their settings for when people are setting up the game for themselves.
Really?
And I think that,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, games like the Destiny game, which is a huge multiplayer shooter game, and things like that have natural. They seem to be bringing in setting-ins for kind of colorblind players, because again, it's one of these things. If you bring colorblind players involved on board, then that is an additional revenue stream.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, always got to bless the guys that are looking after the money, because if they're looking at a different way of exploiting and bringing in more players to play the game, then that's one of the things it looks at. Yeah. And I guess in board games, with people, you know, if people can't play a game because of your design decision, when they're able to play other games, and that again, that's down to exposure and stuff like that as well. But for yourself, I mean, what made you decide to launch the channel then? I mean, what made you say, well, I'm just going to put this to video, and then let's see kind of what kind of happened, and were you surprised at the reaction that you got when you first started to put the videos out there?
Yeah, that's kind of a weird answer, because I didn't get I had the idea for the channel in my head, and then I met Rodney from Watch It Played, and I met him at Origins in Columbus, the big board game convention in Ohio, and I had already been a huge fan of Rodney's, and I met him, and I just said hi to him at the convention, and then I went home, and I was sitting at my kitchen table, and I said to my husband, what if I contacted Rodney and I started interpreting for his channel, like started doing some ASL stuff on his videos. I'm like, I wonder what he would say. And my husband was like, oh, I don't know. I mean, like, you want to just message him or whatever. So I did. And I was like, he's never going to answer me, you know? I was like, this guy's way too busy. He's probably just going to ignore me. But he wrote back, and it was pretty fast. He wrote back, and he was like, let's talk about it, basically. And so we talked, and I was just floored that Rodney would even, like, entertain the idea of doing that. And so we Skyped, and we talked, and we hashed out all the stuff, and we got the first few videos recorded. And during that whole time when I was interpreting for him, I that's when I was really like, okay, now I really have to start a channel, because if this is going to be a thing on Rodney's channel where I'm interpreting stuff, then this could really get deaf people interested in board gaming, you know? Because obviously Rodney is influential and he's popular in the board gaming community, and I knew that deaf people would be seeing that. So I was like, I have to get my channel up and running. So I got my channel up and running in August of 2018, which is right after I met Rodney, because Origins happens in June. So I got the first video up in August, and then I think it wasn't until February of the next year. So February of 2019 is when we posted the first few interpreted videos that I had done for him. So honestly, meeting Rodney was like a catalyst for it. I feel like Dibs on Blue would have happened anyway, but meeting Rodney was like the catalyst for me to be like, oh no, this needs to go online right now. Because I knew that deaf people had something. They had something on Rodney's channel, and I wanted to push it even further and do something on my own channel, you know? So yeah, he was really helpful with that.
So how much planning do you go through? I mean, because I know there's two ways to do kind of like YouTube videos. One of them is the classic, you sit down, you put the camera on, you have a rough idea of what you're doing, and then you put it online, and I hope that people watch my videos. Mm-hmm. And then there's the other one where people like meticulously script the kind of the beginning all the way through. So do you spend quite a lot of time planning out kind of what you're going to be saying on your videos? I mean, obviously Rodney's ones are easy. You're just going to, interpreting and signing the way.
Right.
And are you ever tempted to add in little bits when he says we're just going to put the pieces to the side?
No. Everything I say is what he's saying in those videos. Those are and like you said, those are pretty easy, because once you figure out how to interpret the core mechanics of the game, then everything he's saying is, and he's got a very consistent way of speaking. So his videos have become, I shouldn't say they were easy at first because they weren't, but now I've done them so many times that I know how Rodney talks. So I've used the same kind of signs and stuff to stay consistent on his videos. So that, you're right. That is pretty easy. But on my channel, I'm crazy. I'm crazy organized, crazy meticulous. I script out everything in sign language. So my channel, I'm super organized, super meticulous. I write everything out in ASL. Like, I go through the rule book, figure out how I'm going to say it in ASL. And ASL is not worded completely. It's not worded the same way as English. It's structured completely different. But I hash it out in a Google Doc, kind of in ASL word order. And then This is what I do. Actually, I'm going to give you the inside scoop of how I do my Dibs on Blue video. I don't think I've ever said this. So I script it out in ASL, and then I record myself, just audio, telling myself what to sign. And then I play it while I'm filming. I play it back for myself so that I don't have to memorize anything. And I play it back while I'm filming, and I'm just signing what I'm listening to me say. Wow. And then the video is over. I get the footage from my camera. I take out the audio, obviously, because you can hear me telling myself what to sign. Yeah. So I take out the audio, and then I watch it back, and I type up an English captioned document of what I'm saying in English. And then I record myself watching it back and just speaking it in English, because I do voiceovers on all the videos so that anybody can watch them. Yeah. And then I take all that audio of me saying the English and I overlay it on the video so that it matches up with kind of what I'm signing at times. It's not going to be perfect because sign language, sometimes it takes shorter to say something in sign language, and then sometimes it takes longer to say something in sign language. So a lot of the times I've been actually complimented on how many pauses I take when I'm speaking on my videos, but that's not on purpose. That's because it takes a lot shorter for me to blurt out something in English than it does for me to sign that concept, Yeah. So I'm like, well, thanks, but I'm doing that because I have to, because otherwise I would just talk and the English would be over like well before the video was over. So it's a long process, and that's why I only do a video a month, because I'm a stay-at-home mom with 2 little kids, and it takes a long time. And then I take pictures of all the board game components and things that I'm talking about, and I put it up on the video, and I make little graphics that I like circle things that I'm talking about, and arrows to things I'm talking about. It takes a long time, but I'm a perfectionist, and I love putting those videos together because it's like an accomplishment,
Is there like is there like jargon for certain components in like sign language then? Like, say for instance, meeple and...
Yeah, that's been tough. That's been my coworkers, my ASL coworkers, and good friends of mine that are in the board gaming community. We've talked about this a lot, where it's like, how are you going to describe worker placement in sign language? Yeah. Or because there's nothing for that. There's nothing standard out there in American Sign Language that means those things. How are you going to describe, like you said, like meeple, or I don't know, anything like any kind of board game mechanism or mechanic? How are you going to describe that? And that's been tough because I've kind of had to come up with stuff. And even on Rodney's videos, some of the things he's saying, or I have to figure out how I'm going to sign it, because there's really nothing out there that is telling me, oh, this is how you sign that, I kind of have to give it something.
You have to give it a name, so further down the line, people can recognize that, and that must be really, well, again, it's something that I take for granted. If somebody says it's like, like you said, a worker placement game, or it's got to take that mechanic, just things like that, and you're just like, well, how do it's like translating it into any other any other language,
because
basically.
There's no precedence for it. There's nothing out there that is telling me that that's how it's signed. So that's been rough. That's been tough. But I'm hoping that I'm kind of establishing signs along the way that people will watch the video and be like, oh, okay, then that could be the sign for that. Or, I'm hoping that maybe I'm helping in a way that this could establish some signs for things. I mean, I'm not coming up with anything that's not already out there. I'm taking signs and I'm kind of putting them together to create concepts that just have never really been talked about before. So, yeah, it's tough.
Is there a game that you would love to do an explanation video for in ASL? That you just I'd love to put something together for it. Or alternatively, is there a game that you would dread having to put together in a video that could quite potentially take hours?
Forever.
To explain?
Actually, I just did it. It was Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven is my favorite game of all time. And I made it a point. It was my personal goal. And in January, I did it. I think it was my video for January. I just spent that whole month cranking that video out. I was like, I am going to do Gloomhaven. I don't care how long it takes me. And so I did. It's it's a 53-minute video. But you know what? I got every single rule in there. I'm not one of those people that's like, hey, learn this board game in 8 minutes. I don't like those kind of videos because I don't think you're really getting the whole thing in 8 minutes.
Your hands would have to be going.
Oh my
fast.
gosh. Yeah. So fast. Actually, that's a good idea. I should just be waving my hands around with just gibberish and just label it. Learn this video. Learn this game in 8 minutes. That would be horrible.
There's enough people doing videos on YouTube about waving their hands about and talking gibberish
horrible.
without you having to add
right
into that kind of mix.
Yes, I make jokes because that's what I'm trying to avoid. I wanted to do Gloomhaven where I'm like, no, this is Gloomhaven. You want to learn Gloomhaven, watch my video and you will learn the entire Gloomhaven. And I don't spoil anything, but you will learn how to play the whole thing, and that's my goal. I don't care how long my videos are, as long as the quality is good and the content is good.
Is it? I mean, with people talking about, and I've been recently talking about Twitch streaming, which is a very visual kind of medium. I mean, we can have this discussion on podcasts, and what we've talked about is, providing a transcript so that everybody has access to it. Mm-hmm. But in terms of a Twitch channel where it could be you on a camera, kind of doing a review of a game or something like that, is that something that you would consider doing, where you would be able to kind of live stream explaining how you were playing a game? And then let kind of the deaf community have access to that as well.
That would be really cool. I don't know enough about Twitch, to be honest. I've seen a couple things about Twitch here and there. I don't think I think my husband has watched a couple things on Twitch. I don't know enough about it. But yeah, I mean, anything that would be visually accessible for a deaf person to be able to watch. Yeah. Some sort of video that was overlaid on top of whatever. Yeah, that would be interesting. I should look down that path.
Well, I've seen that an awful lot. I think because a lot of people aren't able to play games in groups, one of the things they seem to be looking at is playing games streaming to each other or on Tabletop Simulator. And the Twitch medium allows the host to kind of be on camera talking to their audience kind of interactively, and it seems like quite a natural way that you could be live on camera while you're explaining a game. But it's just because of how the way everything is going at the moment, which is okay. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Continuing on, and as we get towards the end of the show. We obviously haven't covered the reason why you don't like the colour purple, which personally I feel was an outstanding film with Whoopi Goldberg.
Like the movie.
And
I never said I didn't like the movie The Color Purple. Why
you didn't like that? You know, it was a really good film. You know, some outstanding performances, even from Oprah Winfrey, who was in that film as well, if I remember. But no,
that's funny.
But more importantly, as time goes on, I mean, if other channels wanted you to provide kind of ASL services for their channels, is that something that you would consider? I mean, have you got bandwidth or contacts that people could work with if they weren't able to work alongside yourself?
Yeah, I've been asked that before. I've been asked that before a couple times to, I don't know, maybe we could do some. I've been asked for like collaborations sometimes, like, oh, you can do stuff on my channel, or I'll give you some content and you can put it up on your channel and you can just interpret it, like that type of stuff. And I would love to do stuff like that. I just don't have the time, you know. With being a stay-at-home, if I didn't have kids, with being a stay-at-home mom with 2 little kids and doing Rodney's stuff, which I love my collaborative efforts with Rodney, and I don't want to stop doing that with him. So between that and trying to get my content up there, I just don't have the time right now. And my hope is, by being somebody who's creating this kind of content, is that other people will step up to the plate and put some content up there too, you know?
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I can give an interpreter some sort of encouragement to be like, hey, you do this too.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't have to be just me, you know?
Yeah.
I've had board game people come up to me and be like, oh, my wife's an interpreter and she was so excited to see you pop up on Watch It Played's video, you know? And I'm like, okay, cool. Can she do something? Because I would love for other people to be involved too, you know?
Yeah.
But maybe one day I'll have time, you know, when my kids are 30. Have time. But right now I just don't have the time. So
yeah. I suppose the other thing is contact your local deaf community and see if you can be of help yourself, I guess.
Yeah.
Is the other way, you know, if people kind of are kind of interested. But if people are interested in kind of keeping up with you and what you're up to and everything like that, where do you exist on the internet webs, Stephanie? I
have a Twitter account, a Facebook account, and I just created an Instagram account not that long ago, but it's all at Dibs on Blue Games. I had to add the games because Dibs on Blue was already taken, so...
Scumbags.
I know. So I just wanted to be consistent. I can't remember which one Dibs on Blue was already taken, so I was like, you know what, I'll just make it consistent, and it's all at Dibs on Blue Games, and you can even reach me at dibsonbluegames@gmail.com, so that's even my email address, so... And then just the YouTube channel is just called Dibs on Blue, though. There's no games on that, it's just Dibs on Blue. But yeah, that's where I am. I'm all over.
And what we'll do is we'll make sure that we'll put all of these links in the show notes so that we have got notes to show. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so fun.
Just for everybody who's out there, if you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, go to the internet webs and search for We're Not Wizards and you'll find us. If you like what you've listened to tonight, then consider telling other people that we exist, and if you like us even more, then drop us a subscription on your podcast catcher of choice. There's only a couple more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we're many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Stephanie?
No, we're not.
And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from the rather wonderful, rather fantastic Stephanie Jessup of Dibs on Blue Games. Say goodbye, Stephanie.
Bye. Bye-bye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, stay at home, roll sixes, make something awful. And until the next time, goodbye.
wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.